Hi, Ray Shelton for Great Financial Federal. In 1912, the first official basketball game was played by the University of Louisville. And only 3 years later, Great Financial Federal's tradition began. Both institutions continue to give their best to this community, University of Louisville through excellence in academics and athletics, and Great Financial Federal as the best resource in home lending and financial security. You know, Great Financial Federal is very proud to sponsor this history of basketball at the University of Louisville. We know you'll enjoy it. So continue to support the university, and thanks.
See y'all later.
See. Hey, mister, ball.
That was a nice shot out there today, young fella. Shooting like that will give the Cardinals many more great victories.
Thanks, mister. My dad says you can't win enough around here. You follow the Cardinals, too?
You might say that. These Cardinals has given me and this community many great moments in sports that we can have enjoyed. And watching you young Cardinals out there today takes me back quite a few years.
What do you mean?
Well, there wasn't always 20,000 people in the stands, and ESPN wasn't there to broadcast the games as they do now. But if you got a moment, I'd like to share a story with you.
Well, okay. My dad won't be here for a while. Shoot.
Okay, grab this basketball, hold it firm, shut your eyes, and imagine when.
Wow, where are we? And what are we doing in black and white?
Young fella, we're going way back to the very beginning, before anyone ever even thought of color television. As we know the Cardinals today, they were born right here. You ready to go take a look?
The history of basketball in the city of Louisville was centered around the local YMCA, where the game itself was a major attraction. By 1904, the city's interest in the game had grown to a new level among the schools and athletic clubs. But still, the Cardinals had not left the nest. And then in 1909, the University of Louisville's first basketball team was sighted when the university yearbook heralded the birth of the men's basketball program. The 6 players were successful, 9 wins and just 3 losses. Problems off the court, though, threatened greater danger to the fledgling Cardinals' flight toward today's national prominence. No facilities, precious little money, and publicity virtually non-existent. The lady card secured a picture in the yearbook of 1909, but it would take 2 years before the first known picture of a men's basketball team was snapped. Game scores in 1909 for the men never made the papers of the day, delaying the official, verifiable debut of University of Louisville Cardinal basketball to January 27, 1912, when the U of L was overwhelmed by the local YMCA team 35-3. The 1912 Cards would go 0-3, but 1 year later, on February 7, 1913, the University of Louisville would post its first official victory, upsetting the New Albany YMCA 24-20. The next several seasons saw U of L's numbers on the bench increased, but still no winning season. And then in 1916, this hovering below mediocrity was interrupted by a brief elevation to the top of basketball in the Bluegrass State. The Cards went 8-3, split a 2-game series with the University of Kentucky Wildcats, and eagerly sought a third game with the Cats to determine the true state champion. This game was contested only in the newspapers, U of L vigorously protesting UK's position that the Cards had declined an invitation to play. The chance for a proving game was denied the following year, too, when Louisville's season was canceled due to a lack of funds. The Cards' 1922-23 season would also fall victim to a lack of funds. Fortunately, in this instance, the School of Medicine made a house call. A team known as the Louisville Medics was organized, with the skull and crossbones insignia emblazoned on their uniforms, and they stitched together wins in 3 of their 4 efforts. In the fall of 1923, dance floors were all the rage in the city, and when the Cardinals officially returned to the hardwood, they would frequent the dance floor as well.
Hawaiian Gardens, I think, primarily was a dance hall rather than a basketball court. So there was not a great amount of seating that I can recall, but at the time the floor wasn't very stable. When the players would dribble and run up and down the floor swayed. For what reason, I don't recall.
Organized in 1798, the University of Louisville was the oldest municipal university in America. It had struggled with funding for many years before emerging as one of the best academic institutions in the South, renowned for its medical and dental schools. Athletics, though, through the early years, were conducted haphazardly at best. But in 1923, the university purchased the Old Boys Reform School at 3rd and Ship Streets near Eastern Parkway, creating the Belknap campus. The athletic program was reorganized under the direction of a new Department of Physical Education, and Fred Inke, former football and basketball star at the University of Minnesota, was put in charge. Arranging the basketball schedule for the 1923-24 season, Coach Inke sent word to Lexington as he sought to resume the regular season series with Kentucky, but it would take the Wildcats some 60 years to post a positive reply. Inke's initial campaign produced a footnote to Cardinal history. When describing a 40-19 loss to Georgetown on January 4, 1924, the Courier-Journal for the first time used the phrase "Fighting Cardinals," a term still in vogue today. After posting a 10-7 record in his second season, Fred Inke resigned, citing a lack of funding needed to pursue his goals. Inke moved on to the University of Arizona, where he would eventually post 525 victories in his collegiate basketball coaching career. The athletic torch now passed to Tom King, a former player for Newt Rockne at Notre Dame. Assuming control of the athletic department, along with the basketball, football, baseball, and track teams, King dreamed of bigger things for the university, and his Cardinals were perched for their first real success as they joined their first conference, the KIAC, for the 1925-26 season. By King's 4th year, both his Cardinals and the city itself would take true flight. The city purchased ground for its first airport at Bowman Field, and the basketball Cards won their first state championship outright, beating Georgetown 43-29 in the 1928 KIAC title game. But the Kingmen weren't finished just yet. In 1929, U of L would become the first school to win 2 state titles, turning back Kentucky Wesleyan 31-28 to again claim the KIAC crown. In 1930, Tom King turned the basketball reins over to Eddie Weber, but King continued his other athletic duties, ever aspiring to take his Cardinals to the top of the athletic world. And then, near the end of the 1931 season, while Western Kentucky University unveiled a new gymnasium, the U of L Athletic Council revealed plans to drastically slash the Cardinal athletic budget. Once again, money would be the Cardinals' toughest foe, and Tom King announced his resignation. Depression was no longer a foreign term to the city of Louisville in 1931, but the proposed budget cuts that prompted Tom King to move north to Michigan State never materialized, and for the first time in Cardinal basketball history, their coach Eddie Weber could actually envision the prospects of a real home court advantage. For 20 years after their inception, the Cardinals had been basketball vagabonds. During those years, the Cards played 104 so-called home games, winning 59 for an average winning percentage of just 57%. Progress backwards. Too small. No training facilities. Not enough seats. Maybe so, but never again would a Louisville team be limited to just 4-hour practice weeks, as the 31 squad was, due to a lack of a practice gym. Weber's Chargers would respond to their new surrounding, posting a record 15 wins, and the Cardinals amassed an impressive winning percentage of 72% over the next 5 years. The depression that firmly gripped the nation in 1932 was the catalyst for 2 job openings. The nation demanded a new president, and once again, the Cardinals were searching for a new basketball coach. Eddie Weber loved his university, but an offer from the Kentucky Military Institute to be its basketball coach and athletics director was too lucrative for the Cardinals to keep him. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was swept into office promising a new deal for America. Claude Vaughn Red Money wasn't promising as much, but the Cards' new coach from Hanover College in Indiana would post a school record 16 victories in his second season at Louisville, and a record 46 in his 4 years as head coach. Money would leave, though, citing alumni interference among his reasons for departure, leaving the flight plans in the hands of Laurie Apitz. Apitz was a former player and assistant to the legendary football coach Amos Alonzo Stagg. He accepted the job of athletics director, basketball, and football coach without ever visiting the Belknap campus. He faced difficult times, though, competing without scholarship players and very little money.
Somebody beat Louisville, and they were exuberant about beating Louisville, and they were going to take the basketball as a souvenir, the game ball. And Larry Apitz ran into the shower room of the other team and took the basketball back because it was the only one they had. Now, if you can imagine having a basketball program and only one basketball that you could use, but this is a true story.
For the most part, though, Cardinal basketball with Apitz at the helm for 4 seasons was simply out of bounds, 10 wins and 52 losses. Apitz switched places with freshman basketball coach John Hellman for the 1941 season. Hellman's Chargers made solid progress, but World War II was now making its presence felt. Intending to remain out of the round ball game for the duration of the war, the university canceled the 1942-43 season. Then a silver thread in this dark tapestry of war appeared. Louisville was selected as one of the sites for a naval officers training program, turning the 1944 campus into a nationwide recruiting base. Athletics director Hellman picked 2 chief specialists, Harold Church and Walter Casey, to coach this new group known as the Sea Cards. Pieced together, the Cards proved battle-ready, posting a 10-10 mark from scratch. But the biggest victory that season took place at the Kentucky State High School basketball tournament after the Valley-Anchorage game, when Hellman, working as a referee, asked Valley's winning coach Bernard Peck Hickman to take the Cardinals to the next level.
Hey, wait a minute. My dad's told me a lot about Peck Hickman. Says he was a great coach.
Won a few games along the way.
FDR was still in the White House when Hickman arrived on campus, making him Louisville's 4th coaching change since Roosevelt first moved to Washington some 12 years earlier. Coach Hickman was confident, and the task ahead was made a bit easier when he arrived to find his captive group of Sea Cards.
The good thing was Lieutenant Taylor would come and watch us, and I'd have him talk to him. And he said, you know, he said, boys, we're needing boys across the pond every day. So I don't want the coach come to me and tell me that you're giving him trouble, because if you do, then the next day you're headed across the pond. Well, if I had said run your head in that brick wall, that's all I had. They had to run in there because they didn't want to go across that pond. So I had everything in my favor, and as a result, good competition. I mean, I didn't have to do much, just kind of stick them on each other.
Under Hickman's leadership, the Cardinals' flight to greatness exploded off the launching pad when Louisville overwhelmed Georgetown 99-27, setting a new school scoring mark and the start of an NCAA record 46 consecutive winning seasons. A school-best 22 wins was on Coach Hickman's agenda for 1946, and the foundation for future success was secure. In 1948, 2 big men, Jack Coleman and Duard Compton, teamed with 4 guards, junior Johnny Knopf, sophomores Glenn Combs, Kenny Reeves, and Roy Combs to fuel the University of Louisville's first national championship run. 32 teams convened in Kansas City for the 1948 NAIB Championship, the nation's oldest college tournament. Its winner would also be guaranteed a prestigious spot in the Olympic trials to be played later in New York City. To win the NAIB title, the Cards would need to post 5 wins in just 6 days, and the first battle took place both on and off the court.
He was giving us holy heck about being only 1 or 2 points ahead or 1 or 2 points behind, and I made a comment that he didn't like very well, and he told the rest of the boys, he said, you boys go out and warm up. Said, Coleman, you stay in here a minute, I want to talk to you. And he told me in no uncertain terms that he was the coach of that team and would be the coach of the team until he got fired, and until they made me coach for me to keep my mouth shut. So that was our first run-in, our only run-in.
The Cards finally prevailed over South Dakota 63-60, and then whipped Emporia State of Kansas and Beloit of Wisconsin. Xavier fell next in the semifinals. The NAIB championship game would match Peck Hickman against Indiana State and their coach, John Wooden. By a score of 82-70, Louisville claimed its first national championship and returned to a city alive with Cardinal basketball. The season, though, had one more stop, a date with Adolph Rupp's fabulous 5 in the Olympic trials at Madison Square Garden.
Compton recovered that bad pass. Ace Combs on the right side, under the basket to Compton. He pivots, spins, shoots, and he scores. Stuart Compton scores a spin shot. Louisville 2, Kentucky nothing. Barker has the ball taken away from him by Ace Combs. Barker lost the ball. It goes to Knopf. Under the basket to Compton, and he scores. Compton scores a layup for Louisville.
The Cardinals would come up short in the Garden, but won an important recruiting battle nonetheless when Coach Hickman asked a young assistant high school coach and referee, John Dromo, to join his staff.
I asked him one day if he'd be interested in coming to University of Louisville as assistant, and he jumped at the chance, so we talked around a while. And I remember I finally asked him one question, and I remember his answer. I said, John, do you think that you can recruit for the University of Louisville? He said, if you'll give me that job, I'll be the best bird dog that's ever been around here. He said, I'll tell you that right now. So I hired him, and the rest is more or less history. He did a great job.
The Cardinals would need this top-flight recruiter to help counter the demands of one of the nation's toughest schedules, which helped earn Louisville its first NCAA tournament bid in 1951 and a second postseason date, Adolph Rupp's Wildcats in the NCAA's Eastern Regional in Raleigh, North Carolina. Kentucky prevailed 79-68, but the Cardinals were quickly closing the gap. Entering the 1955 NIT, many fans thought the Cards were jinxed in Madison Square Garden. In the 3 previous NITs, the Cards posted only a single win. The 55 Cardinals, though, advanced to the quarterfinals before losing to top-seeded Duquesne. Hickman's 56 team had a nice balance of experienced players, headed by Charlie Tyree, Jim Morgan, Bill Dara, Phil Rollins, and Jerry Mormon, but they also possessed a collective confidence that they could compete with anyone in the country.
That was a ball club that felt like that they could beat anybody. They weren't really a cocky ball club. They just had a lot of confidence, and they were a very closely knit team, buddies, in other words.
This time, Duquesne, not U of L, would be answering the critics back home. Louisville 84, Duquesne 72. St. Joseph's of Pennsylvania fell next, creating a first and third for the Hickman team. First time in the NIT championship, and third time that season, Louisville would square off against the Dayton Flyers.
The first half flew by. These guys are going up and down the floor like they were crazy. I mean, everybody, I was in good shape. This is the latter part of the season. And when we played about 5 minutes, I was pooped. But I think, and then you settle into a groove, but that first half was played unbelievably hard. And second half was a little different. It was a little more of a tactical thing. You started trying to do some things that made sense.
The Cardinals stayed in the groove and defeated Dayton for the third time, 93-80. Now Louisville had furthered its national stature with a second national championship. The growth of the program also mandated an address change, moving U of L's home games from the downtown Armory to spacious new Freedom Hall. The decision required delicate negotiations, not only with the school administrators, but with fans as well.
When you used to go to basketball games at the old Armory, this was a social event. You'd see everybody. At halftime, everybody walked all the way around the floor. You'd wave to people up in the stands, you'd chit-chat, and it was a big social event. The fairgrounds was so large that you could be at the ball game and I'd be at the ball game. We never know each other was there. And there were a lot of people who didn't like that. They said, "Oh, we don't want to go to a basketball game in this place."
In 1959, the Cardinals' flight plans called for a second appearance at the NCAA tournament. After beating Eastern Kentucky in the first round, it was on to Evanston, Illinois, where the opponent once again was Rupp's Wildcats. Those picking U of L in this third postseason clash between the in-state rivals were few. Even the hometown Courier-Journal sports brass hedged a bit.
Ruby called. I think he was trying to hedge his bets. He said, "Well, maybe something might happen we're not expecting. Do you think you could get a ride to Chicago?" He said, "We'll get you a hotel room." And I got to Chicago and I had room, and then got to the game, and it was understood that U of L wasn't going to beat UK. Their experience in the past hadn't been too good to indicate that they might beat them. So Beck would write the story if UK won, and really didn't talk about it. Me writing anything, but the U of L wasn't supposed to win. Well, when they beat them, I ended up doing the story, and I don't know whether Beck had a sidebar or not, but anyway, I was there on probation, so to speak, by luck rather than design.
The Cards fell behind by 13 early, but managed to trim the deficit to 8 at the break, when Coach Hickman opened the floor for discussion.
I didn't say much to him, and had a little boy named Barry Shermer, little bitty manager, Firebug. I think he did more than anything I could have ever said, because I hadn't said too much, and I said, "Does anybody want to say anything?" A lot of times I would. I said, "Any of you boys want to say anything about what way we're doing?" He said, "I want to say something, Coach." And I said, "Okay, Barry." He got up, and he was about 5 feet 8, little. He said, "All you boys, if I was a coach," he said, "you know what's wrong with you?" He said, "You got a yellow streak on your back. You're afraid to get out there and fight Kentucky." Well, Fred Sawyer was 6 feet 10, 6 feet 11. There's he and Goldstein and John Turnip. Sawyer stood up and he said, "Who you calling yellow?" Sherman said, "Well, everybody but Turner and you and Goldstein. I'm not calling y'all yellow." Well, everybody broke down, and you see the smile and laugh. I just said, "Okay, the only thing I want to say, I don't want to see daylight between you and your man in the second half. If you do, you come down to the ball game, win or lose. Let's go."
And the rest of the team controlled the daylight as well. The Cardinals stormed past Kentucky 76-61. With a 15-point beating of the Cats, the University of Louisville had confirmed its standing, both around the nation and perhaps more importantly, the Commonwealth. A win over Michigan State the next evening earned the Cardinals their first trip to the NCAA Final Four, held in Louisville's Freedom Hall. But Jerry West and his teammates weren't intimidated. Final score, West Virginia 94, Louisville 79. 2 years later, the 61 Cardinals were knocking on the door again, taking defending national champion Ohio State to the final buzzer in the NCAA Mid-East Regional, again in Freedom Hall, where the heartbreaking 56-55 loss ended the Cardinals' championship run. In the early 60s, changes were coming both on and off the court. On campus, the construction of a new saucer-shaped facility began, creating Crawford Gym, a proving ground for the next generation of Cardinals on the practice court. Off the court, assistant coach Dromo continued to win recruiting laurels as U of L led the South in integration with the signings of Wade Houston, Eddie Whitehead, and Sam Smith in 1962. The talent showcased to the city of Louisville by these Cardinals gave fans throughout the region a front row seat to the revolutionary changes integration would bring to college basketball. Louisville's progressive efforts were helped greatly when in 1964, the Cards landed a true blue-chip prospect in the form of Seneca High School's Wesley Unseld. The Cards had joined the tough Missouri Valley Conference, and big things were happening on and off the court.
Purdue University had an aeronautical division, and they flew college teams around them. And I remember once, these things went so slow, you could almost see the cars going ahead of you as you went west. But I remember one time when the pilot had to tell the players, Unseld particularly, to quit getting up from his seat and walking back on the plane to talk to another player because they weren't going anyplace. He'd walk, he'd stand up and the plane would go like this, seriously. So that's how times have changed since then.
With Unseld under the boards, there was a trip to the NCAA in 1967, where the Cards dropped a narrow 83-81 decision to SMU in the Midwest Regional in Lawrence, Kansas. But they were still winners back home.
I think that team, as far as I was concerned, even though it didn't succeed and get into the Final Four, sort of perhaps brought U of L into the modern era in a way, because it set the expectations that later were carried on by, particularly by Denny Crum.
But the time demands of this new era prompted athletics director Peck Hickman to resign the head coaching position after 23 seasons, leaving a legacy of 443 wins, 2 national championships, and the community's heartfelt appreciation.
More than just a basketball coach, he turned out to be a very good friend to me. I mean, I grew up and learned basketball under Coach Hickman, and I credit him with a lot of the way that I look at this sport and this game today, and also with the way I look at life in a lot of instances. He has proven to be just one of those very special people that you run across in life.
Longtime assistant John Dromo was the only choice for the Cardinal post. He justified U of L's confidence in him, winning 21 games in his first season. It took Elvin Hayes and his Final Four-bound Houston Cougars to end Dromo's run at his own national championship in the '68 NCAA Midwest Regional. Dromo's team posted 21 more wins the next year. Equally impressive, John Dromo's first 2 Cardinal squads were a near-perfect 25-1 in Freedom Hall. At the completion of Dromo's 3rd season, his Missouri Valley Conference winning percentage sparkled at nearly 80%. With assistants Howard Stacy and Bill Olson, Dromo was building a powerful team when tragedy intervened on January 2, 1971. Coach Dromo had suffered a heart attack in Oklahoma after a victory against Tulsa. The Cards finished the season 20-9 with Stacy as interim coach, leading the team to an NIT appearance. But the future of Cardinal basketball was momentarily suspended when John Dromo stepped down due to health concerns.
I've given this some serious consideration. I've discussed this previously with Dr. Strickler, and it was something that I felt in the best interest of the university and my own personal welfare that this adjustment be made. I think it was time, I think it is time for a younger man to come onto the scene and take up the coaching job, which was left to me by Peck Hickman.
And the Cardinal administration did turn to a young assistant coach from the championship UCLA dynasty to direct its basketball fortunes. On April 17, 1971, the city of Louisville met Denny Crum, the Cardinals' new basketball coach.
Hey, mister, I gotta tell you something. I know Denny Crum.
I think everyone knows Denny Crum and what a great job he's done for this community and the young people. But let's stay focused on what we're trying to do and become a part of these national titles he's won.
Denny Crum had been an energetic top assistant to the legendary John Wooden at UCLA. The new head coach was ready to make the most of his opportunity, unveiling a recruiting blueprint that not only revealed his philosophy concerning talent, but a subtle understanding of geography as well.
If you did your job, that you could find enough good players to be competitive, because, you could go north towards Chicago or over to Detroit. You could go recruit the East Coast. You could recruit Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, and then, of course, you could go into the Deep South. And I felt that that's where the majority of the top players that we might have a chance to get would come from, simply because most of that was football country. There were a lot of great athletes down there. I felt that good athletes, maybe they didn't have to be great basketball players, but if they had good attitudes and they were willing to work and they were athletic, that you could teach them what they needed to know about basketball.
Putting his plan into action, Coach Crum added his first recruits, Ulysses Jr. Bridgman, Alan Murphy, and Lewis Simmons, then turned his attention to the 9 returning seniors who would anchor his initial Cardinal squad. A talented group who did everything he asked after their disappointing season opening loss on the road at Florida.
We never should have lost, and I told him, right there, I can remember to this day, I said, well, I told you what would happen if you didn't listen.
Crum's first win was registered at home on December the 4th, 1971 against in-city challenger Bellarmine, 116-58. The first of 15 straight wins. The Cards would lose only 2 more in the regular season. Louisville then hammered Memphis in a Missouri Valley Conference playoff and secured the league's NCAA tournament bid. Then they captured the NCAA Midwest Regional Crown, their 26th win against 3 defeats, and Denny Crum had advanced to his home away from home, the Final Four.
At the time, I thought, well, you know, here we are again. I'd been there 3 years in a row as an assistant to Coach Wooden, and I thought, well, this is the way it's supposed to be. And obviously, that's not the way it is, but at the time, I didn't know that.
Crum contemplated his team's chances against the Walton Gang, a group he helped recruit for UCLA.
The one thing that you can't prepare guys for is the intimidating factor of a guy like Bill Walton. We got the ball down the court almost at will throughout most of the first half without any trouble, and got wide open shots on the baseline against their press. And even though he never came out, they kept looking for him, and I think we were 0 for 7 at halftime on wide open shots from 15 foot on the baseline. We had a good game plan, and it worked to perfection, except we didn't make the baskets, and you got to give them the credit for that, and particularly Bill Walton, because he was intimidating just standing there.
Despite UCLA's victory, it had been a euphoric first season for Denny Crum. The Cardinals' visit to the Final Four automatically stimulated greater interest and expectations. Those expectations were met with an encore performance in the 1975 Final Four. Only this time, all of college basketball was aware of Denny Crum's exciting style of play.
I never forget John Lucas talking to him later on in NBA time, and he was saying, man, I'd come down and I'd shoot a shot that, I just knew was gonna go in, and then somebody would fly out of the sky and block it. I was saying, where are all these guys coming from, jumping over the rim and stuff like that? So he said after the first 5 minutes, they were in awe. They had never seen guys, block shots and do those kind of things before to them.
Again, the opponent was John Wooden's UCLA Bruins, winners of 9 of the previous 11 NCAA titles. America would witness one of basketball's legendary battles. The Cardinals had their chances, leading 65-61 with 66 seconds to play. Yet another Bruin steal would help knot the score 65-all. With 12 seconds remaining in regulation, the ball was in the hands of Junior Bridgman for the game-winning shot in a national title game against Kentucky.
The sports arena had 2 sets of lights that ran along both sides, and there was TV lights both sides of the floor, one on one side, one on the other side. And if you went up for a shot, the lights would blind you and you couldn't see the basket. And with the clock running down, score tighter, and Phil Bond passed the ball to me right in front of my bench, see the basket, go up for the shot, and as I jump right up into the lights, and the whole rim and everything disappears.
The Cardinals had opportunities again in overtime, but a 12-foot jumper by the Bruins' Richard Washington found nothing but net. Louisville's dream had been shattered. While a huge disappointment to the Cardinal team and its fans, the season itself at 28 wins and 3 losses had been another huge success.
I think what we did end up proving and I think establishing was that the program under Denny Crum had arrived. That the first year, even though he had 9 seniors and they were real confident and had gotten to the Final Four, some people say, well, maybe they should have gotten there. He inherited a great situation. I think by us getting there that year, we really proved that the program at the University of Louisville under Denny Crum had arrived, and people looked at that program as one of the elite in the country.
At the press conference after this classic game, John Wooden, the Wizard of Westwood, announced that the ensuing title contest would be his last. The UCLA job would be open. prompting the press to inquire about Denny Crum's travel plans.
We called a press conference, in fact, before they made any decision on what they were going to do, and made the announcement that I was not a candidate for the job because I had yet to accomplish what I had set out to accomplish here. And I wasn't ready to leave and go back and because I wanted to win a national championship here, and I thought we could do it.
For the 1975-76 season, the Cards joined a new conference, the Metro.
When the Metro was conceived, television wasn't as big as it became, so the timing was right. And the Metro Conference got off to a running start with good television contracts and being a league, upstart league in large cities, great competition, natural rivalries. It definitely moved the University of Louisville again up.
And the nation's #1 high school product, Mail's Darrell Griffith, called a national press conference.
I made a commitment not only to Louisville, but in front of the nation that before I left the University of Louisville, that we would win a national championship. And I was sincere about that. You set yourself goals. You know, my 2 priorities when I came to the University of Louisville, in 1 and 2 order, was first to get my degree in 4 years. And the second priority was to win a national championship.
Coach Crum notched his 100th victory in 1976, and while the next 3 seasons would produce 3 more trips to the NCAA, a tournament mark of just 2 wins and 3 losses caused some critics to question why the Cardinal Express had apparently slowed.
We had one of the best teams we ever had in 1977. In fact, that particular year, Marquette won the national championship, and we went up to Marquette and beat them on their floor. We went from there out to and had a 3-point loss, I think, at Las Vegas, if I'm not mistaken. And if you look back at that game, I think we fouled out 5 of our top 6 players. I say we did, somebody did. We went from there to Tulsa, and Larry Williams broke his foot. And we just didn't have anyone ready to step in at 6'7" or 8" and take his place. But we had won 15 in a row and beat the national champions on their own floor. That team was as good as any team in the country at that point. Las Vegas was the Final Four team that year. So we were capable of winning it all that year. We didn't win it, but it had more to do with the injury than anything else. We had as good a chance as anybody else.
In 1979, 4 key freshmen, Scooter McCrae, Derek Smith, Jerry Eves, and Wiley Brown, entered U of L. The team won 24 games, but a subpar performance during the latter part of the season and an NCAA ending loss to Arkansas would reaffirm the resolve of the team's senior leader to be Darrell Griffith.
I swallowed my pride and went to Tony and said, hey, I need to work on my ball handling. Can you help me? And he showed me a film. We worked on some ball handling. That's how I came up with the chair drill. All that came from Tony Branch. And I just took that and applied it to my workouts, and along with shooting over 10-foot volleyball poles day in and day out, 2 or 3 hours a day. You know, when I had friends wanting to go to Kings Island and so forth, I said, hey, I pass on that. You know, I was committed and focused on making myself the best player I could be for my senior year.
The 1980 Cardinals included 2 new additions, Rodney McCrae and Pancho Wright, as the Doctors of Dunk jammed their way to 3 straight season-opening wins. But sophomore star Scooter McCrae was lost to a season-ending knee injury against Tennessee and Knoxville. Freshman Rodney McCrae replaced his brother in the starting lineup, and the Cardinals regrouped. After a loss to Illinois in the Rainbow Classic, this team of destiny reeled off an impressive string of 18 victories, including Coach Crum's 200th over Marquette, before Jim Valvano's Iona squad halted the streak convincingly in Madison Square Garden.
We were very embarrassed about the performance that we played, so we got together and discussed from that point on what we were going to do and what our focus was. We wanted to get back in focus, and from that point on, it was history.
There isn't anybody in this tournament we can't beat. But we can't beat anybody if we play like we did last year. We got to play our game.
Then the team got down to business. 3 wins and back to the NCAA to meet Kansas State in the Midwest Regional at Lincoln, Nebraska. But things got tight. Kansas State took the Cards to overtime. Griffith fouled out, and then Coach Crum summoned Little U's senior guard Tony Branch from the bench.
He had such great character. and he handled the adversity of going from a starter to sitting on the bench really well, and he was a great team leader. And I felt, well, there's no one that I'd rather see make that shot than Tony, and I wanted him to know how much I appreciated, his attitude and stuff. And I just felt that if anyone could do it, he could do it. And as it turned out, the ball bounced a couple times before it went in, and boy, I mean, your heart's up in your throat, but it was it's a shot that I'll never forget.
It would take another overtime game to dispose of Texas A&M. Then the Cards outran LSU 86-66 to capture the Midwest Regional in Houston to advance to Denny Crum's third Final Four. At Market Square Arena in Indianapolis, Louisville eliminated Iowa 80-72 in the semifinals to earn a date with Larry Brown and UCLA for the national championship. The Cards were down 28-26 at the break. The score didn't worry the coach, but the intensity level of the team did.
Major turning point in that basketball game occurred at halftime when Coach Crum walked into the locker room at halftime. Basically his speech was that you guys are choking, and we'd never heard that before. And I remember looking over at Wiley and Jerry and Rodney, and we're like, wait a minute, he's stepping on our toes, and so we're going to go out and do our thing.
In the second half, the Cards turned up the pressure, but with 4 minutes remaining, they trailed 54-50 when UCLA's Kiki Vanderway stole the ball and made an ill-fated dash to glory.
He stole the pass and went down, and Jerry Eves actually didn't knock the ball away from him, but he ran under him as he went up to shoot the layup. And it distracted him to the point where he actually missed the layup, and Wiley Brown got the rebound.
Missed the shot. Brown ought to give it up. He's going to lose it in the open court. That was a big play when Vanderway missed it.
But there was even a bigger play than that. We ran a special play for Griff, and it was a play that where we throw the alley-oop to him.
I think we call that play Marquette, where I throw the ball to Wiley and cut off the center. The weak side forward cuts across the lane to leave the whole side open. And I got the alley-oop, but the guy was still on me tight. I couldn't complete it with a dunk. And I had to catch it, control it, and then just being able to concentrate and having the ability to hang enough time where I could concentrate, put the ball in the basket, and I got fouled.
We were down 5 at the time, and now we're only down 2. And that's a big turnaround right there. That's now your guys think, now we got a chance to win, because we never were ahead in that game till right after that, and we never really was a threat. We just were always behind them.
And get back in it they did. Jerry Eves scored 4 unanswered points to tie the score, 54 all. Then Griffith took things in his own hands to put the Cards on top for good.
Out to Darrell Griffith. Denny Crum says, slow down, Darrell. From the free throw line, Darrell shot. It's good. 56-54 Louisville.
This was it. The Darrell Griffith-led Cardinals delivered as promised, winning the national championship 59-54, returning home with a 33-3 record and the NCAA title to find a city wrapped in a red and black frenzy. The nucleus of the championship team minus Darrell Griffith returned for the 1981 season. With Scooter McRae back in uniform and freshmen Lancaster Gordon and Charles Jones up from Mississippi, the young Cards planned on a repeat performance. But replacing Darrell Griffith, the National Player of the Year in 1980, was a slow process, as the 81 team lost 6 of their first 7 games. But in true Denny Crum style, they caught fire late, winning 15 straight, before a desperation 49-foot last-second prayer by Arkansas's U.S. Reed ended their repeat championship aspirations in the NCAA. The Cards came right back the next year. The 82 team, featuring a roster that would in time play 7 players in the NBA, fought past Minnesota and Alabama Birmingham to win the Midwest Regional on Alabama Birmingham's home court. The Cardinals were bound to New Orleans for yet another Final Four battle. The opposition, Patrick Ewing's Georgetown Hoyas.
Either team would let the other team do anything. And it was a frustrating game, I think, from a coach standpoint, because it didn't make any difference what we did. They were so good defensively, they didn't let us do it. And then we stopped everything they tried to do. Neither team really ever got anything going. We had a unfortunate thing. Milt Wagner had some kind of an infection in his hands. He lost all the skin and stuff off his hands, and he was a freshman that year, and he was our best outside shooter. And boy, they were packing their defense in there. And now, we weren't a great perimeter shooting team anyway, and he had to play with gloves, which I'm not sure technically was legal, but at the time, we asked permission for that, him to be able to do that, and obviously it affected his play, but we didn't think we could win without him, but it was a very unfortunate time for something like that to happen. And so a lot of the championships that you win and a lot of those that you lose have to do with breaks. Good breaks or bad breaks, and I've always said that you either have to have some good breaks or at least not have any bad breaks, and we had our share of both.
1983 brought the Cards their third Final Four in just 4 years, Denny Crum's fifth and 12th. But perhaps the biggest game was played in Knoxville the week before the Cards squared off with Houston's Phi Slamma-Jammas in the Pit at Albuquerque. The universities of Louisville and Kentucky had not met since U of L's 15-point victory in the 1959 NCAA. Since Denny Crum's arrival on Belknap campus in 1971, challenges had been issued but never accepted. This natural rivalry demanded action, but even in postseason play, fate had seemed against such a game. A 1982 Mideast regional matchup between U of L and UK had looked like a sure thing the year before, but Middle Tennessee stunned the Cats, postponing a possible game another year. The Cardiac Cards ensured the matchup this time, coming back from 15 down to nip Arkansas in the regional semifinal. A steadfast refusal to lose earned the Cards their date with Kentucky when Scooter McRae's tip-in at the buzzer beat Eddie Sutton's Razorbacks 65-63. 24 years of expectation and frustration were compacted into a 45-minute war known as the Dream Game. Kentucky broke sharply, but Louisville stormed back with a punishing full-court press. Regulation play decided nothing, 62-all after 40 minutes. But the overtime period was all U of L's. The Cards routed the Cats in the extra period, scoring the first 14. Cards 80, Cats 68, and the Cards were on to the Final Four again for a showdown with Hakeem Olajuwon and his Houston Cougars. To the Albuquerque Final Four, the Cardinals brought a 32-3 record. At halftime, U of L led Houston 41-36, but a lack of depth to battle both the environment and a gifted 7-footer was too much.
We only had 5 guys that were really proven college players, and then Billy Thompson was a freshman. So we actually only played 6 guys. And at sea level, it would not have been a factor, but at that elevation, their depth really got to us, and by half of 2/3 of the way into that second half, Mishad fouled out of the game. They didn't even know he had 4, and he fouled out, and they put in that Benny Anders, and he just beat us up and down the floor. He was fresh and a great athlete, and so depth was a factor. The fact that we played in Albuquerque at over mile-high elevation, I think, was a factor. I really felt that we would have beaten them. Had a chance to beat them there. We just ran out of gas. In fact, it's funny. A friend of mine made the comment, he said, well, one thing I learned, he said, Olajuwon was still 7 foot tall at the end of the game. Nobody was jumping at the end, but he was still getting the rebounds because he was taller than everyone else.
In 1984, the Cards posted 24 more wins, the 14th straight season at 20 wins or better. Denny Crum picked up his 300th win, and the team made it to the NCAA Sweet 16 before losing in Rupp Arena to the hometown Wildcats 72-67. The following season started with great promise as the Cardinals rocked Bob Knight's Indiana Hoosiers in Bloomington 75-64, but an NCAA appearance wasn't in the cards. Opening its home season at newly renovated Freedom Hall against Virginia Commonwealth, Louisville lost star guard Milt Wagner for the season with a broken foot. Wagner was eligible for a medical redshirt, though, and it proved to be a catalyst for a championship. Returning for the 1986 season, Wagner joined a now-seasoned club that featured fellow Camden native Billy Thompson, along with hometown favorite Herb Crook and Ashland's Jeff Hall. The 1986 team, like the 80 champions before, would be anchored in the paint by a freshman center, this time Purvis Ellison. In early February, the '86 Cards were beaten by another Jim Valvano team, North Carolina State. The Cards' record that evening stood at a modest 15-7. It would be Louisville's last defeat of the season. Just as the 1980 team rededicated itself after the Iona loss, the 1986 team developed a new attitude and confidence. Senior forward Billy Thompson would pack an entire career into the final 17 games of the '86 season. The Cardinals won 11 straight to make it back to the NCAA tournament for the 6th time in 7 years. Drexel and Bradley fell in the opening rounds of the West Regional in Ogden, Utah. Former number 1, North Carolina, and athletic Auburn fell next as the Cards captured the West Regional title in Houston. Then it was on to Reunion Arena in Dallas for another Final Four showdown. Crum 6th in just 15 years. The Cards blew past LSU 88-77 in the semifinals, setting up another championship battle, this time with top-ranked Duke. Duke led for most of the game with their All-American guard Johnny Dawkins working his backcourt magic. However, in the second half, Coach Crum made some critical adjustments that put the Cards in a position to win.
We went to our little high-low offense and made them made the entry pass from the high post into the low post, and they couldn't stop Purvis in there or Herb or Billy. And then that really helped us. We scored most of the points we scored coming down the stretch with that particular play. And then the other change we made was we went to a little zone and chaser because I had decided that if we ever got to the point where we had a chance to win it, that it wasn't going to be Dawkins that beat us.
My most vivid memory of that game to this day is the look in Jeff Hall's eyes in the second half when he was guarding Dawkins. I don't think I've ever seen that on a basketball court. It was so intense. His eyes were just off in another world almost, that he was so into guarding Dawkins that he just wasn't going to let Dawkins hurt him that much.
Hall, with a little help from his friends, limited Dawkins to just 2 free throws for the last 8 minutes of the game. Then, with 41 seconds remaining and the Cards clinging to a 1-point lead, 66-65, Hall went on the offense, so to speak.
We wanted to get the ball in Milt's hands, but it was a situation where we couldn't, so we had to go kind of in a 1-4 situation, and I just kind of took somebody off the dribble and shot a fadeaway and ended up 3 or 4 inches short.
Getting it in is a big problem. They've got it to Hall with 10 seconds on Dawkins. Hall drives to the right. Ball away one-hander. No good. Ellison put it in. The rebound. Purvis Ellison got it for the Cardinals. We're down to 38 seconds.
Duke players are taught to, whenever a shot goes up, to turn around immediately and block out. And that's what they did. But when they turned to block me out, I noticed that the ball was falling short. It seemed like I was the only one looking at the basketball, and I was able to catch the ball right in front of the basket and lay it in for the, not the winning basket, but it was definitely a basket that put us in front by, I think, 3 points.
Purvis, your lay-in of Jeff Hall's air ball and your 2 free throws with only 27 seconds left demonstrated real promise. They tell me you're only 19. By the time you reach my age, you're going to be quite a basketball player.
Never nervous, Purvis added 2 crucial free throws to total 25 points for the night, becoming the first freshman since 1944 to win the Final Four MVP. The Iceman Milt Wagner sealed the win when he hit 2 free throws with just seconds remaining, giving the Cardinals their second NCAA championship and memories for a lifetime.
It was all worth it, you know. It's like a blessing in disguise. I got hurt last year. I sat out the whole year, and here I am, you know, part of the national championship now. And, you know, it's like a dream come true. I like to thank God for it, and we're #1 in the country.
Now the Cardinals were alone atop the college basketball world. With 2 national championships and 4 Final Fours, Louisville earned national accolades as the team of the 80s.
You know, I often wonder what happened to that little fellow that slept through our 4th national title.
I bet I know. You should have told me you're Peck Hickman. My dad says you're a great coach. My dad says, oh, here comes my dad. Hey, Dad, guess who I've been talking to? This is Peck Hickman.
Hi, Denny.
Has Scott been bending your ear?
Not too much, no.
No, Dad, he took me back in history before TV and before.
Denny Crum, despite playing one of the nation's most demanding schedules annually, has continued his winning ways, picking up his 400th win over South Carolina in 1988 and his 500th victory against South Florida in 1993. Combining stellar local talent with some of the nation's best from outside Louisville, the Cards continue to accumulate both Metro Conference regular season and postseason championships, while the team continues to log frequent flyer miles to the NCAA tournament, displaying a level of consistency and longevity synonymous with championship play.
I think the thing that I'm proudest of was the consistency of our program. I mean, even on our down years, we had better years than a lot of people, and a lot of people would have liked to have had those kind of down years. And, you know, to be able to be up there and be competitive year after year after year, I think is what makes me feel best about what we've accomplished here.
Winning is important, but it's not the only criteria for success in Denny Crum's game plan for life.
Coach Crum said there's life after basketball, and I believe he has. He taught us that you're not going to win every night, and it's just like in everyday life, you're going to lose some battles of whatever. You're going to have ups and downs, and so you got to keep going.
In a tribute to fans and players alike, the 1980 and 86 title teams challenged each other in their own championship game. June 23, 1990 was a storied night in an overflowing Freedom Hall. Evening climax, a decade of Cardinal dominance, merging together the legends of the 80s that had produced 2 national titles and 4 Final Four appearances. The only team to win national championships in the NCAA, NIT, and NAIB, a record 46 consecutive winning seasons, 7 Final Fours, the team of the 80s, a national TV favorite. A self-sustaining program, second to none. It's all part of that fighting Cardinal tradition, christened by Peck Hickman and energized by Denny Crum, guaranteeing Cardinal fans their permanent seat on a non-stop flight to greatness.